breakthroughs in heart treatment, the legal battle over unionization, and a water crisis in Mexico's capital city, plus a look at women in the world in 2018. I'm Martin Rather. This is The Underreported. We begin with a segment we call Something You Might Have Missed. This Thursday, March 8th, is International Women's Day. Around the world, people will celebrate with art performances, rallies, talks, networking events, marches, and more. This year's event holds particular importance because women have never been more celebrated for their progress towards equality, yet women are so far behind in achieving that equality. Last year, the women of the hashtag Time's Up movement were named as Time Magazine's Persons of the Year. And around the world, 38% of countries have now had a female leader, and this year alone, 8 more countries have been added to that list. It would be easy to think that progress has arrived and is being made every day in terms of equality for women. However, the Global Gender Gap Report from the World Economic Forum paints a different story. Here's a quote from their latest report. Unfortunately, data shows that the gender gap is widening, so there desperately needs to be new ways of thinking if the world is to close the gender gap. Progress is regressing and moving backwards. Instead of taking 170 years to close the gap at the current rate of progress, it is estimated that gender parity across the world will take over 2 centuries, 217 years to be exact. We're sure to see various celebrations of International Women's Day on Thursday, and rightfully so. But it's worth noting how much work is yet to be done. Now, on to our national correspondents. A recent study in health engineering is a potential breakthrough against the harmful DMD. An engineered heart muscle can help restore muscle cells in the heart to beat normally. Olivia Leveda reports on this health concern from California.
A deadly disease that stops the heart from beating. It's called Duchenne muscular dystrophy, also known as DMD, and it is linked to loss of heart and skeletal muscle. In fact, according to the Muscular Dystrophy Association, many children with DMD begin using a wheelchair sometime between the ages of 7 and 12. But a team of scientists hope their recent study of gene editing will cure children with the genetic disorder. Professor of molecular biology, Dr. Eric Olson, who worked on the study, says there are more than 4,000 different mutations in the dystrophin gene that cause DMD. Basically, lack of dystrophin leads to the disease. The team of scientists transformed DMD patient blood samples into heart muscle cells. The researchers used a gene editing tool to control the DNA in the heart cells and restore the dystrophin protein. The scientists then turned normal cells, the DMD patient cells, along with the cells they corrected, into human engineered heart muscle. The fixed engineered heart muscle was able to beat like a normal heart. According to the study, 1 in 5,000 males are impacted by the disease. Researchers believe that if clinically proven to be safe, they can correct up to 80% of the mutations identified in DMD boys worldwide. From California, I'm Olivia Leveda, The Underreported.
Fair share fees affect nearly half of the 50 states. The Supreme Court has an upcoming case to determine people's right to expression in terms of their union dues. Workers may be required to contribute to a union, regardless of their opinion on unionization. Robert Sherman from DePauw University in Indiana has the story.
The biggest case regarding unions since 1977 is currently being discussed in the Supreme Court right now. And the main issue at hand is fair share fees. Now, if you're a member of a union, you're obviously going to be responsible for your own union dues. But if you're not a member of a union, you may still be expected to contribute to a union within your industry in order to help fund things such as collective bargaining negotiations. These are called fair share fees, and right now they're legal in 22 of the 50 United States. For now, they could be on the chopping block, as right now several Supreme Court justices on the conservative side of the aisle firmly believe that they should be done away with because they violate one's right to freedom of expression, essentially meaning that even if you're not part of a union, you'd be expected to contribute to a union or a political cause that you may not be in favor of. Conversely, there are many liberal justices out there who believe as though that this would, if you were to get rid of fair share fees, it would be the beginning of the end for unions, as this is the main source of income that they use in order to fund everything that they need to do, especially when it comes to collective bargaining. So that's the debate that's going on right now. And right now there's a 4-4 split in the United States Supreme Court. Only one undecided justice, and that's the newest justice, Justice Neil Gorsuch, who nobody really knows at this time what his view on fair share fees are, and so he will ultimately be the deciding vote. But there is not a lot of optimism in the union camp, as to quote the head of the Massachusetts Teachers Association, Barbara Mataloni, she said, quote, "I fully expect him to go against us. It would be shocking otherwise." So at this time, there are many people in the unions who are hoping for the best, but they are expecting the worst when it comes to the future of fair share fees. Reporting from Greencastle, Indiana, this is Robert Sherman for the Underreported.
Food, shelter, water, the most basic of needs to survive. However, in recent times, water shortages and a polluted water system have been a growing problem in North America. Our own Cameron Kaufman brings us a story of Mexico City, where a crisis is rooted in a failing water infrastructure with hundreds of years of history.
While residents of the Midwestern United States received record rainfall in February, south of the border in Mexico City, there has been a serious drought. According to the New York Times, the Mexican government concedes that 1 in 5 of Mexico City's 20 million residents has not had good access to water. Furthermore, in the neighborhood of Iztapalapa, with a population of 2 million, residents have been without taps for months. Now, Mexico City sits in a precarious situation due to climate change and due to its geological foundations. Mexico City rests on a basin and clay beds of a former lake that the Aztecs chose to build the city on. When water demand has increased due to drought and to rising temperatures, Mexico City officials have decided to drill down, trying to find water in underwater aquifers that are leftover residue from the Aztec lake. In doing so, though, they've disrupted Mexico City's groundwork, destroying the clay beds and causing the city to collapse upon itself, sinking at a rate of 1 foot per year. With the sinking has come a destruction in Mexico City's infrastructure, most importantly, its water distribution network, as pipes have broken apart. Now, according to the Times, 40% of the water pumped through Mexico City's 8,000 miles of pipes actually is lost due to leakage or due to thieves. So, when the Mexico City government decides to try and drill down deeper, providing more water for its parched citizenry, it is actually destroying the very network that can provide water to its citizenry. Coming to you here from Brantford, Connecticut, I'm Cameron Kaufman, the Underreported.
And now, to finish up, we look back in an event this week in history, as well as what news can be expected in this upcoming week. This week in 1913, 31-year-old writer Virginia Woolf submitted The Voyage Out as her first novel. This book received mixed reviews by critics, but she would later achieve literary success with books such as A Room of One's Own, Mrs. Dalloway, and To the Lighthouse. Looking forward, this week Montgomery County Judge Stephen O'Neill is expected to make a pivotal ruling on Bill Cosby's sexual assault retrial. This decision will determine whether or not to allow other accusers the opportunity to testify against Cosby. The key issue in this case is something called the doctrine of chances, which is the concept of whether or not prior, similar bad acts can be admitted into court if they are not on the list of charges. Almost 50 more witnesses could be called to testify if the judge rules that they fit a pattern in Cosby's behavior. Local experts think the ruling could be announced as early as Wednesday. And thank you for joining us this week for The Underreported. If you have any stories that you believe are underreported, please leave a comment below, and we'll do our best to get back to you. We'll be taking a break next week. It's spring break, but we'll return on March 20th. For The Underreported, I'm Martin Rather. Have a great week.